Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Duke, and welcome to another episode of Right Makes Might. Well, this campus stuff is just out of control, and I think one of the most interesting aspects of what's going on our college campuses with regards to the election of Donald Trump is the absolute hypocrisy that took place in a very short couple of decades. You may remember in the 1960s, of course we do, Berkeley was considered the home of free speech. It was the birthplace of the kind of revolution, relatively peaceful revolution, that protested things like the Vietnam War, that tried to open up campus to civil rights and other things. Those protests got stupid and violent as well. But nevertheless, the home of academic freedom, right, on which tenure is based in universities, was housed at the University of California, Berkeley. And now the children and the grandchildren of that generation of unwashed hippies are now unwashed and much more unprincipled and much more dangerous than their mothers, their fathers, and their grandfathers were. So now what's happening on Berkeley? They're using violent forms of protest. They're smashing windows. They're overturning cars. They're pelting the cops. They're pepper spraying people who simply had the judgment to vote for Donald Trump. What's really remarkable about this is that in the 1960s, when President Nixon rolled out the National Guard at Kent State University and some protesters were killed, this was an absolute attack on freedom, on democracy, on the Constitution, on the United States. Now, 5 decades later, these same campuses, the police stand there and do nothing. They stand down and allow these violent protesters to do their business. And now you've got people like Sarah Silverman, who cut her comedic chops by talking to people on college campuses, giving her comedic routines on college campuses, is now calling for martial law and the military overthrow of the federal government. How things have changed, right? In the 1960s, the centralized federal government was the answer. Let's use government to break open this. Let's pressure the federal government to stop the war. Let's use the power of government to transform our universities. And now the heirs, the philosophical and intellectual heirs of these revolutionary protests are actually calling for the overthrow of the government, a kind of anarchy that condones violence, that underwrites the destruction of free speech. It's a shame, Berkeley. And I understand what the talking heads are all saying, that 150 radicals on the Berkeley campus made the rest of them look bad. But let me ask you this. If 150 Christians committed all kinds of violence and savagery in a rally of 1,000 Christians, you'd blame Christianity, wouldn't you? You look right at us and blame Christians. It's not an acceptable excuse. Clean up your act, Berkeley. If you got those kind of militants causing this trouble, then use the police force to get rid of them. And if you want the right to protest peacefully against people like Donald Trump, the best way you get that is to guarantee people who support Trump free access to conservative speakers on campus.
This is Right Makes Might with Dr. Duke.